The first meeting between humanity and the Valari was meant to be perfect. It was planned for years. Every movement was written down. Every word was approved by leaders, scientists, and soldiers who feared saying the wrong thing to a species that ruled half the nearby stars. Eli Carter stood inside the contact hall, feeling very small. The room was wide and white, made of glass and light. Human flags stood quietly at the back. Cameras floated in the air, recording every breath. Behind thick walls, hundreds of people watched, waiting for history to happen. Eli was not a general. He was not a politician. He was chosen because he was calm, because he listened, because when people were afraid, he did not pretend to be brave. He was honest. The doors on the far side of the hall opened without sound. She stepped inside. Lyra of the Velarii. Her form was tall and graceful. Her skin glowed with soft shifting colors, like the sky before sunrise. Her eyes were large, bright, and full of intelligence that felt old and sharp. She wore no armor, only a simple ceremonial band around her arm that marked her as an envoy. The air felt heavier. The moment she entered, Eli felt his heart pound. But he did not step back. This was it. First contact. Lyra walked forward slowly, studying him as if he were a strange animal. Not with hatred. Not with love. With curiosity. The translator activated. Eli bowed his head slightly, the way he had been taught. "Welcome," he said carefully. "On behalf of humanity." Lyra raised a hand. He stopped instantly. She tilted her head and looked him up and down. Then her lips curved into something that looked like a smile, but carried sharp edges. "Human," she said, her voice smooth and playful. "You traveled far. You prepared so much. You stand before me so politely." She took another step closer. "So tell me," she continued, eyes glowing softly, "what else do you expect to receive from me?" The words echoed through the hall. Silence fell like a weight. Behind the walls, people froze. This was not in the script. Not even close. Some thought it was a threat. Others thought it was a test. Eli felt his mouth go dry. He looked at her and saw something strange beneath the teasing tone. Not mockery. Not cruelty. Expectation. The Valari believed meetings were trades. Power for power. Gifts for gifts. Obedience for mercy. She expected him to ask for something big. Weapons, protection, knowledge. Eli took a breath, and then he said the simplest thing he could. "Nothing." Lyra blinked. Eli continued, his voice quiet but steady. "We don't expect anything from you. You came here by choice. That alone is enough." The translators repeated his words. The colors on Lyra's skin flickered. "Nothing?" she asked slowly. Eli nodded. "Yes." She studied him again, this time more carefully. The teasing smile faded. Something else replaced it. "Confusion. Your species crossed stars to meet us," she said. "You expose yourselves to danger. And you ask for nothing?" Eli gave a small, nervous smile. "We just wanted to say hello." That answer did something no weapon ever had. It unsettled her. Lyra straightened, her posture no longer playful. "You are strange, human." Eli let out a quiet breath. "We've been told that." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, the lights in the hall adjusted automatically. The temperature shifted slightly. The system detected a change in Valari biology and corrected it. Eli noticed her skin dim for half a second. "Are you comfortable?" he asked without thinking. Lyra looked at him sharply. "You altered the environment." "For me?" Eli nodded. "You looked uncomfortable." She stared at him. No species had ever done that during first contact. Something deep inside her shifted. Though she did not yet understand what it was. Far away, Valari fleets watched the recordings. Human leaders whispered urgently. Analysts argued. But in the center of it all, a single truth began to form. This meeting was not following the rules of the galaxy. And that made it dangerous dot and beautiful dot after that first meeting. Lyra could not stop thinking about the human who asked for nothing dot. The Valari had rules. Every interaction, every greeting, every gift had meaning. Respect was given, but only in exchange. Power and wealth, technology and loyalty, they measured trust with risk and reward. To give without expectation was foolish, weak, impossible. Yet Eli did it. Not once, but again and again. Over the following weeks, Lyra watched him closely. He moved quietly through the research station, carrying supplies for others, adjusting equipment before anyone asked, offering help with a gentle smile. He apologized when he accidentally bumped into her during corridor inspections. He remembered her preferences, her small reactions. Even when she tried to hide them, he seemed human. Lyra could not understand it. Her species measured worth by achievement, conquest, influence. Humans measured worth differently, or maybe they didn't measure it at all. They simply acted. They simply cared. One afternoon, she watched him in the hydroponics lab. Plants glowed under artificial sunlight. Eli knelt beside a wilted sprout, brushing soil around its roots, murmuring encouragement. Lyra tilted her head, curious. She did not move closer, but she felt a strange warmth. It was alien and confusing. "You are weak," she said suddenly, a challenge in her tone, though her eyes betrayed fascination. Eli looked up, his hands still in the soil. He smiled faintly, not offended. "Maybe," he said. "But sometimes weakness is just another way to see the world." Lyra's skin flickered with shifting light. No one had ever spoken like that to her. Not diplomats. Not kings. Not generals. She found herself following him from room to room, learning his habits. He shared water with the maintenance drones that others ignored. He encouraged the young human interns to try again when they failed at experiments. He laughed at small mistakes, not cruelly, but warmly. One night, she caught him looking at the stars outside the station's viewport. His eyes reflected countless points of light, but there was something deeper: hope, wonder, longing. Lyra stepped quietly beside him. "Human," she said softly, "why do you care so much for things that cannot return it?" Eli looked at her, surprised by the sudden question. "Because," he said after a pause, "we do not measure kindness by reward. We measure it by who needs it." Lyra's skin shifted rapidly, faster than normal. She had learned to read subtle signals, and this one said more than words ever could. Confusion, fascination, disbelief. She tilted her head, examining him. "Your species is strange. You give without asking. You risk without needing. You feel without expecting. Why?" L.A. shrugged, simple as if it were obvious. "Because it matters." "Matters?" she repeated, intrigued, struggling to grasp a concept that did not exist in her culture. "To you, all of this, small things, gestures, words, they matter more than survival, than power?" Eli nodded. "We believe life is more than survival or power. It is moments. It is people. It is what we give, not what we take." Lyra turned her gaze to the glowing plants in the lab. She could see his truth reflected in them, in the gentle way he nurtured life. It was foreign, incomprehensible, beautiful. For the first time, she felt a crack in her understanding of the galaxy. All her lessons, all her strategies, all the rigid rules she had learned since birth, they did not explain him. And yet, she did not want to turn away. She did not want to leave this human behind. So she watched. And she learned, and she began to feel something that terrified her. Something she could not name. It was respect, and perhaps something deeper. The galaxy outside continued as it always had, full of politics, alliances, and wars. Fleets of ships moved like chess pieces across stars. But inside this small research station, time slowed. One human, in his quiet and simple way, was teaching a Valari envoy something no school, no weapon, no empire ever could, that caring for others was not weakness. It was power. And that realization would change everything. Peace, fragile as it was, shattered in a heartbeat. The warning came without ceremony. Sensors blared. Red lights flashed through the research station. Distant star systems lit up with a swarm of Valari warships, hundreds of them. They had declared humanity a future threat. Preemptive strike. Total annihilation. Eli stood in the control room, staring at the holomap. Every point of light represented death if it reached the station. His heart pounded. Fear rose like fire in his chest, but he did not move away. He never did. Not for alarms, not for danger, not for the unknown. Lyra appeared beside him. She had received the orders herself: retreat, surrender, enforce the fleet's plan. She should have left him. She should have obeyed. Every instinct screamed at her to do so. But she did not. Her eyes scanned the approaching fleet. "They will destroy you," she said softly, her voice almost trembling. "They will destroy this station. Your species. It cannot survive against their firepower." Eli nodded. "Probably," he said simply. No panic, no despair. Just honesty. Then why stay? She demanded, her voice a whisper now, sharp with emotion. "Why risk everything?" Eli turned to her, meeting her luminous eyes. "Because you're here." She froze. The words carried weight she had never imagined. She, the envoy of 1,000 worlds, the representative of the most powerful species in this part of the galaxy, felt her instincts falter. For the first time, she felt fear not for herself, but for someone else. The alarms shrieked. Crew members ran to their stations, calculating survival probabilities, preparing defenses. Engineers rerouted power to shields. Medics checked every injured. Soldiers armed themselves, some quietly shaking, others holding their nerves like swords. Eli moved calmly through it all. He checked on the youngest interns, encouraged them, held a hand when someone faltered. He did not command. He did not scold. He simply acted, protecting life because life mattered. Lyra followed him closely, instinct and duty fighting with new emotions she did not yet understand. She had never witnessed humans in such moments. Their bravery was not showy. It was quiet, stubborn, unstoppable. A massive flash lit the outer rim as the first attack hit. The station shook violently. Alarms became screams. Lights flickered. Smoke-filled corridors. Eli grabbed Lyra's hand without hesitation. "Come with me," he said, pulling her into the emergency chamber. She did not resist, but her skin flared with shock. "This is madness," she hissed, gripping his wrist. "You cannot protect me and yourselves." Eli held her gaze. "We don't leave people behind." Those words were more than courage. They were a promise. The kind humans made silently, the kind that held meaning far stronger than weapons or laws. As the walls trembled, Lyra realized something terrifying and thrilling. Humans did not measure strength like the Valari. They did not measure survival by victory. They measured it by who they protected, by who they refused to abandon, by who they refused to betray. And in that moment, she understood. Humans were dangerous. Not because they conquered easily, but because they loved fiercely. Fiercely enough to stand in front of death itself. Eli guided her to a reinforced chamber. Debris rained outside. Fire erupted in distant corridors. She felt panic rise, but she also felt something strange: trust. He looked at her, blood and soot smearing his uniform. "I am human," he said quietly. "This is what we do." Lyra could not look away. Every instinct screamed retreat. Every command demanded obedience. Yet every fiber of her being trembled with the realization that this species, fragile and unowned as it seemed, would never, ever bend to fear in the way she understood it. And that realization terrified her more than the fleet ever could. In that chaos, Amid alarms, fire, and the relentless threat of death, a silent war raged in her heart. Not against the humans, not against the fleets, but against the rigid lessons she had been taught all her life. Because here, in the middle of fear, in the shadow of annihilation, she had discovered something new, and it scared her more than any weapon. Humanity's strength was love. The station shook again. The hum of energy shields, the blaring alarms, the rushing of boots across metal floors, it all became a rhythm of survival. But Elam moved through it with quiet determination, steady as if the chaos were only background noise. Lyra followed him, still stunned by his calm. The Velari fleet had opened fire fully now. Laser bolts tore through the outer hull, metal screamed under pressure, and debris spun in zero gravity. Yet in the center of it all, Eli cared not for his own safety, only for those around him. He found the young interns huddled near a collapsed corridor. Panic was in their eyes. "It's okay," he said, voice soft but commanding. "We move together. Stay close. Trust each other." He carried one of them through smoke, another held onto his shoulder as they ran. Every step was deliberate, careful, but full of courage. Lyra watched, her mind struggling to understand. These humans were not fearless. They were braver than fear itself. Then came the wounded. A technician had been struck by a falling panel. Eli didn't hesitate. He lifted the debris, bleeding from a gash in his arm, and applied pressure with his own sleeve. He whispered reassurances in simple words, human words, full of warmth. "You're okay. I've got you." Lyra's skin flickered rapidly, her colors changing with the unfamiliar emotion swelling inside her. She had seen species fight, command, and manipulate. She had seen power. She had seen obedience. She had never seen care given like this. "Stop," she said at one point, almost a command. "Stop risking everything for them." Elish shook his head, eyes still on the injured technician. "They are not them," he said quietly. "They are people. We don't leave people behind." Lyra's jaw tightened. No Velari had ever acted like this. Obedience was rewarded. Defiance punished. Strength measured in control, in conquest, in fear. But humans measured strength by what they gave, not what they took. A sudden alarm cut through her thoughts. Another breach in the station hull. A vent panel exploded near them, sending smoke and shards flying. Elish shielded the nearest human with his own body. Flames licked his arm, but he didn't flinch. He simply guided everyone to the nearest safety pod. She could hardly speak. Every instinct told her to intervene, to order him to stop, to save herself. Yet she felt powerless, and strangely. Once they reached the emergency chamber, Eli collapsed briefly, exhaustion written across his face. He smiled at her, blood and sweat mingling on his skin. "See? Nothing impossible," he said, half joking, half true. Lyra stared at him, a thought forming in the depths of her mind she had never considered. What he did was not strategy. It was not calculation. It was giving. Pure, unmeasured, uncalculated giving. She remembered the words she had teased him with in the first meeting. "What else do you expect from me, human?" Now she understood the irony. He expected nothing. Yet he gave everything. A human engineer approached, tears in her eyes, and said, "Thank you for saving me." Eli waved her off gently. "I didn't save you for thanks. I saved you because you are here. Because you matter." Lyra's glowing skin rippled, her emotions running in colors she had no names for. Curiosity, awe, and slowly admiration. Swelling into something that frightened her, she realized, in that chaotic room of fire, alarms, and falling metal, that humans fought differently than any species she had known. They did not fight for glory. They did not fight for power. They fought for each other. And in that fighting, in that unselfish courage, She saw something ancient and unbreakable. She saw the essence of humanity, shining brighter than any weapon, any shield, any fleet. She wanted to understand it. She wanted to be a part of it. And as the flames licked the edges of the chamber, and human and alien alike held their breath together, Lyra realized that the galaxy was witnessing not just survival, but something far greater, because what humans gave was themselves, and that was stronger than any fleet, any weapon, any empire. The station hung on the edge of destruction. Alarms screamed like dying animals, and the hull groaned under relentless fire. Outside, the Valari fleet hovered like a storm ready to crush everything inside. Every protocol, every rule, every command demanded obedience. Lyra's orders were clear. Leave the humans. Abandon the station. Obey the fleet. But she did not move. She stood beside Eli as he directed humans toward emergency pods, his face smeared with soot and blood. He did not panic. He did not curse. He only moved with quiet purpose, protecting every life he could reach. Lyra, he said, voice low but firm, they will hit us again. We need to move. Her eyes flared, luminous colors shifting rapidly. She had never disobeyed before, never defied a fleet. Yet the thought of leaving him, of letting these humans die, was unbearable. Her communicator beeped. The fleet's voice was sharp, commanding. Withdraw now. Obey or face destruction. Lyra held her hand over the device, hesitating. Her heart raced. She could feel centuries of tradition and duty pressing down on her. But something deeper, something unfamiliar, rose stronger. Her fingers hovered over the controls. She could reroute the fleet. She could prevent the attack. She could save them all, but it was against everything she had ever been taught. And then she looked at Eli. Bloodied, exhausted, yet steady. His eyes met hers, and without a word, he reminded her of something she had never experienced in her life. Trust. Her hand moved decisively. She accessed her personal command channel and sent a single message, not to threaten, not to bargain, but to declare a choice. Humans are not enemies. If you fire again, you fire on me, she said. Simple words, but they carried the weight of defiance, loyalty, and truth. The fleet hesitated. Orders were repeated. Weapon systems were primed. But no one fired. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar of battle. Eli looked at her, astonished. You did that for us? Lyra nodded, color shifting slowly from fear to resolve. For you. For all of you. I could not leave. He smiled, faint but full of gratitude. Thank you. The fleet's response came slowly, hesitant, as centuries of habit and expectation clashed with a new reality. One by one, the weapons powered down. The ships withdrew. The storm that had promised death and fire receded. Inside the station, the air seemed lighter. Humans embraced, cried, and laughed nervously, still in shock, but alive. Engineers and medics patched wounds and restored systems. Soldiers finally allowed themselves to breathe. Lyra stood silently, watching the humans. She could feel their emotions, raw and unfiltered fear, relief, gratitude, hope. She had never seen anything like it in her life. The Valari measured success by control, obedience, and fear. Humans measured it by courage, trust, and the willingness to stand together. Eli approached her, extending a hand, smeared with soot but warm. You could have left, he said quietly. I could, she admitted. But I didn't. I couldn't. He nodded. That's what we do. We stay. We fight for each other, even if it seems impossible. Even if we might die. She stared at him, the truth settling into her very being. Humans did not act out of fear or desire or calculation. They acted because they chose to care. And that choice, small and simple, was stronger than fleets, stronger than orders, stronger than centuries of rules And in that moment, as the station trembled and smoke still curled in the halls, Lyra made a decision that would echo across stars. She would follow humanity's example, not because it was safe, not because it was smart, but because it was right. The choice had been made, and somehow, for the first time, she understood what humans truly gave. Everything. Not for reward, not for power, but simply because they could. And that was impossible to ignore. The battle ended, but the aftermath was heavy. Smoke still curled from the damaged station corridors. Alarms had mostly stopped, but the hum of damaged systems and the groan of twisted metal reminded everyone that the fight had been real. The human crew moved through the wreckage, exhausted, but alive. Lyra walked among them, trying to understand what had just happened. Eli sat on a damaged bench, arm bandaged, uniform torn and bloodied, but he smiled faintly when he saw her. "We made it," he said simply. Lyra tilted her head, still unsure. "You did not need to risk yourself so much. The station could have survived without you." He shook his head. "No one survives alone. No station, no fleet, no star matters more than the people inside it." She blinked, absorbing his words. Every instinct in her body rebelled. Valari law, duty, centuries of tradition, they all screamed that humans were weak. That survival was power, and yet here he was, proving them all wrong. Over the next days, Lyra stayed at his side, helping the humans repair the station, distributing supplies, encouraging the injured. She learned the human way of patience, of small acts that mattered more than weapons or strategies. She saw the way they laughed even after trauma, the way they cried for each other without shame, the way they simply cared. One evening, the repaired viewport showed stars stretching across the galaxy. Eli leaned against the frame, staring out into the void, his expression calm but thoughtful. Lyra joined him quietly, her glowing skin dimmed in reflection. "Human," she said softly, "why do you continue, even when it is dangerous? Even when the odds are against you?" Eli turned to her, eyes soft. "Because someone has to. Because waiting for the perfect moment means nothing gets done. Because people matter more than fear." Lyra felt her colors shift, not in anger or surprise, but something warmer, something she could not name. Admiration? Respect? Perhaps the beginning of something more. She had never thought she could feel this way about another species. She had never thought she could see strength in something so gentle. He looked at her then, noticing her attention. "You know," he said lightly, "we humans are not perfect. We make mistakes. We fail, we get hurt. But we always try again. And sometimes that is enough to change the outcome." She considered this quietly, letting it sink in. No calculations, no laws, no fleets could match this simple courage. Humans fought differently. They fought with their hearts, their loyalty, their care. And in doing so, they became stronger than any weapon could measure. Lyra laughed quietly, almost nervously. "You speak of courage like it is easy," she said. Eli shrugged. "It isn't. That's why it's rare." She studied him, and for the first time, the teasing from their first encounter returned to her mind. She remembered how she had asked, "What else do you expect from me, human?" Now, after fire, after chaos, after seeing life risked and saved, she understood. Humans expected nothing, yet gave everything. It was madness. It was brilliance, it was. Beautiful. Eli noticed her watching him and smiled faintly. "You're staring," he said softly. She shook her head, colors flickering with emotion she could not yet define. "I'm learning," she admitted. "Your species. It is unlike anything I have ever known." He reached out, gently brushing soot from her cheek. The gesture was small, yet intimate, human in its simplicity. "Then you're seeing what we give," he said. "Even when it's hard. Even when it costs us everything." Lyra felt something stir deep inside her, An emotion that command, not law, not fear, but trust, curiosity, connection, perhaps even admiration that bordered on affection. They stood there together, looking out at the stars, and in that quiet, fragile moment, the weight of the galaxy's chaos seemed to lift. She realized that humanity's greatest strength was not weapons, fleets, or conquest. It was their choice to care, their choice to act, and their refusal to abandon those they loved. And in the middle of that fragile peace, Lyra silently promised herself she would understand it, she would honor it, and maybe she would learn to give as freely as humans did, for the first time. She saw what the galaxy had missed all along. True strength was not measured by domination or fear, it was measured by love, courage, and the willingness to stand for others and humans. Humans had it in abundance. The station was quiet now, but the silence was not empty. It was heavy with relief, with exhaustion, with the quiet hum of life that had survived against impossible odds. Smoke had cleared, alarms had stopped, and the distant threat of the Valari fleet had receded. But the memory of fire, chaos, and near death lingered in every corner. Isla sat on a bench near the viewport, his arms still bandaged, face smudged with soot and sweat, but eyes calm. He watched the stars streak past, thinking about the fleet, the danger, the humans he had protected, and the alien who had chosen to defy her orders to save them all. Lyra approached silently. Her colors dimmed, her expression soft but thoughtful. She had spent days learning from humans, watching, following, seeing how they cared, how they risked themselves, how they gave everything without expecting anything in return. It was still hard for her to believe. The Valari believed that nothing in the galaxy was free. Everything had a price. But here, in front of her, was proof otherwise. She remembered their first meeting, her teasing words, "What else do you expect from me, human?" At that moment, she had thought it was a joke, a test, maybe even a trap. Now she understood it differently. Humans expected nothing, and yet gave everything. It was not weakness. It was unimaginable strength. Eli glanced at her and gave a small, tired smile. "So, we made it," he said quietly. Lyra tilted her head, thinking. You risked everything," she said softly. "For us, for humans, for people you barely know." He shrugged. "We do it because it matters. Because no one should be left behind. Because life is worth it." She studied him, the sincerity in his eyes, the calm bravery in his posture, and she realized something profound. Humans did not fight for power, for domination, for glory. They fought for each other. They risked themselves not to conquer, but to protect. They gave without thinking of reward. They loved fiercely, boldly, and completely. She had watched fleets of powerful ships, generals, diplomats, and strategists. She had never seen courage like this. Not in command halls, not in centuries of war. It was not flashy or violent. It was quiet, steady, unstoppable. It was human. Eli stood, limping slightly from exhaustion, and extended a hand toward her. "Come on," he said. "Let's finish fixing this place. We have work to do." She hesitated for only a moment before taking it. The simple human gesture, touching hands, offering support, trusting without question, felt heavier than any weapon she had ever known. As they moved through the damaged corridors together, Lyra realized that she had changed. The mission, the war, the chaos, none of it mattered as much as the choice humans made every day. To care, to protect, to give everything without expecting anything back. And she knew that this lesson would echo across the stars. Fleets would hesitate. Commanders would think twice. Civilizations would notice that humanity's strength was not measured by fleets or firepower, but by courage, kindness, and loyalty. Eli glanced at her again and smiled, faintly teasing as he often did. "So, what else do you expect from me?" Lyra's lips curved into a genuine smile this time, softer, warmer, and more honest than the teasing she had offered first. She shook her head. "Nothing," she said. "You've already given more than I could imagine." He laughed softly, tired but bright, and together they walked through the station. Side by side, repairing, restoring, laughing softly at small mistakes, comforting the injured. It was quiet work, simple work, human work, and in that quiet, Lyra understood fully. Humans were fragile, yes. Humans were small in the vast galaxy, easily destroyed. And yet, they were unstoppable. Not because of power, but because of their hearts. Because of their courage. Because of the simple, impossible choice to care. History would record this day as the day the fleet withdrew. The day humans survived against impossible odds. But the truth, what mattered most, was smaller, quieter, and infinitely stronger. Humanity gave without expectation. Humanity risked without hesitation. Humanity loved without boundaries. And Lyra knew, deep in her heart, that the galaxy had never seen anything like it, and for the first time, she understood what humans truly were, and she could not help but think softly to herself, humanity. Yeah.